came out to our school like 4 years ago to see our mentor program. And that evolved into the zones of regulation, social emotional learning. I started teaching yoga this past year to kids as part of the zones. And it just kind of kept going. And as I kept meeting people, teachers, through all of my different hats that we all wear, did I realize how deep the need is for trauma in our little kids. And so I wrote letters to the governor and to the first lady and just said, I know you guys are covering this and love you to death. And first lady doing high school and older, I said, we need somebody with the little ones. We need somebody down with the little guys. So I kept barking up the tree and the call came and here I am.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll make a difference, but we have to try, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm open to ideas and suggestions and need, as a matter of fact. So
Okay.
send them my way.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting, and that takes some courage to make those kind of change. So good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, so what's everyone else doing as maybe it's just going to be us today visiting. So
there's a message here from Patty that Superintendent Baszler is finishing a call and will join us shortly.
Perfect.
So.
Oh, I just got it. Yeah.
And I see Kayla on there, right? Is Kayla there?
Hey, everyone.
She is there. Hi, Kayla.
Hi. How are you?
Good. What are you doing? What's everyone doing in the midst of insanity?
Staying home the most that we can.
Anybody partake in any riots?
Nope.
Good Lord.
Did happen in Fargo, though, where I live.
Yeah.
Right. How was it?
Scary.
I mean, lack of a better word. What did you do? What?
Scary. I was just watching the live feed. We live in actually like West Fargo, so a little ways from downtown, which is good, but it was still scary. So I don't know. My brother-in-law is a cop in Bend, Oregon, and they have a protest supposed to be tonight. So sending up prayers that everybody is safe there and that it's just peaceful. The people in Bend really love their police department. They have a really good relationship with them. So I feel like it should be pretty calm, but I thought the same thing in Fargo and that surprised me. So who knows?
Well, right. You never know who has something up their sleeve or if, like they've said, and I don't know what the truth is, if there's people coming from out of town and out of state and just causing trouble. I don't know, but it is
idea.
Right. You're right.
Scary is the first thing I can think of. I had my kids are here during it, and I woke up that night several times with night terrors thinking like they're coming by our house, but they really weren't. But I woke up like, hitting and screaming.
Right.
So.
Right.
Oh,
it's so awful.
Yeah. But it sounds like the one in Minot went great.
Yeah.
That's good. Grand Forks was good.
Minot's was very, very nice, and went well. So. And it was well attended as well. There was a lot of people, and it was very peaceful. And
Were you there, Eddie? At the Minot one?
Yes, in Minot. Yeah.
Nice. I would like to go, but right, there's always that fear that if chaos is going to break out. I love seeing all the links of the police officers kneeling with the protesters or walking with them. That's more what we need to see. But I know there's a large group of people who feel that nothing comes without a reckless revolution. And that's the frightening part, is I think there's a lot of people who believe that, obviously, right now, that might be the way to go.
Yeah.
Somebody said next week it'll be Jurassic Park, so prepare yourselves.
Right.
The craziest year ever.
That is for sure. That is for sure. Goodness.
So have you guys through your schools heard anything or had discussions about the plans for going back. I'm assuming that may be part of our topic
Mhm.
today. What do you
Well,
think?
in Minot, we're planning on going face to face or in-person summer school in July, and
Really?
so I feel like in North Dakota, I mean, we could be wrong. Who knows what will happen? But I feel like I don't know with the CDC guidelines how it would even be possible. But maybe some of that will change. I just hard to know. Are there ongoing conversations at the state level about that right now? About half days, full days? Is that a district decision? Is it state? Does anyone know that?
No.
I feel like they keep wanting it to be a district, leave it like the governor's saying, leave it to the states, leave it to the states. And the last meeting I had at my school, that's what our superintendent was saying. We feel like it's going to be left to us. But I think if you've got one district doing one thing and a neighboring district is like, oh, we're going to stay online, you're going to have chaos. I can't see that working. Like we were all in the same boat together. So it kind of like everybody embraced the chaos together. I don't know how that will work if it's everybody can do what they want. I don't know. That worries me.
Yeah. It seems like if they find out, and I don't know if the summer is long enough to find out, like there's been indications that maybe we don't have to worry as much about surfaces as they thought, some of that kind of stuff. But I haven't heard anything. I just lots of concern about how is it all going to work and what do we need to prepare for too. That's the other thing. It's just.
Mm-hmm.
We're having a pizza night at Sunnyside every Tuesday night, starting tonight with different grade levels. And we kind of took the Central Park theme, and we're having hula hoops, 6 feet apart for families. And there's an organization that reached out to me about how they could help Sunnyside families. So that was just one thing we decided we're going to do. So I tried to get live music, but I couldn't find any live musicians that wanted to go out. And so then I got nervous thinking, here we are going out trying to, at least see some families. But I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how it goes tonight and just seeing some little faces and smiles, hopefully, and air hugs.
Right. Good luck. Sounds fun.
This is the first one.
This is our first, this is our first one. Yeah, and then we're going to go through the neighborhoods again with our ice cream and book giveaways. We've done that the last couple of years. We are starting that next week. So
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We're being extra cautious, but also we kind of feel like we need to get out there and see our kids and families. And North Dakota is opened up a little bit. So we're just going to take it all around and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Yeah. It's really strange going in different places, how some places there's like nobody's wearing a mask. Everybody's just it's like the Twilight Zone, and in other places everybody's so cautious. It's unsettling to me. Oh.
I agree, Mary. I went to Home Depot the other day and nobody had masks on. None of the employees had masks on. And that really shocked me because I feel like every place else that I went, every other business, the employees had masks on. Not all the people had masks on, but the employees all did. So I'm kind of with you. Like I just want everybody to do the same thing, and I want everybody to do the right thing. And why aren't they?
Everybody be normal, please. Right.
Yeah. I was at Shields and nobody had a mask. And then I go right next door to Target and everybody had a mask. That was last week sometime, but it was just so strange to me. So.
Hi, Superintendent Basler.
Hello.
This is much better conversation that I just got off of. I don't know if Patty was able to tell you what I was doing.
Nope.
So we had a state board meeting. I don't know if you've heard about the 4 Oberon school board members that were charged. So Yeah, it's consumed about 8 of my days. Well, it's consumed about 20 of my weeks since January. But it came to a culmination. The Bureau of Criminal Investigation reached their conclusion late last week, and four school board members from Oberon Public School were charged with felony theft and misapplication of public funds.
Oh my gosh.
So three employees and 4 board members. The only 4 of the 5 board members, the 5th board member had only taken office on middle of March. And so she was fine. She's a county commissioner as well. And she was actually asked to be part of the board because the county commission had gotten involved because there was no superintendent. And the county superintendent became the superintendent of Oberon, so the county commission. So yes, there was one left. State board needed to meet with the governor, and I met this weekend, and we determined that it was in the best interest of the school district, because essentially you can be charged and jailed and have a hearing for stealing money, and there's nothing in law that would prevent you from being a school board member of that same school board.
Wow.
Unless the governor orders a financial audit, which he did, and then he has the authority to suspend them pending the results of the audit. And so he suspended them late Saturday night, and thus the state board has 5 days to appoint 2 board members to bring them up to a quorum so they can appoint 2 more board members. And so that state board meeting was this afternoon, and we appointed 2 new board members to join the county commissioner board member. And they had a million questions because they're a million questions. They're in the process of trying to get a superintendent hired, and what's their legal authority. So I was just walking through with the County School Boards Association. So this is much better.
Yeah.
You need a massage after this.
Yeah, it's those are the parts, and I think that I kind of maybe gave them a little bit of a lecture. In fact, I'm not kind of sure. I know I did, just because there's been recall elections. It's just one of those communities where it's one side against the other, and one election flips the entire board this way, and then no one's happy, and then the next election flips the entire board that way with this family, and no one's really thinking about the 55 kids that are going to school there. Mm-hmm. So I just said the state is watching. Oberon is, and those kids are watching all the time, but now a lot of people are watching. So please just do the right thing. And if you don't know what the right thing is, don't think that you have to know all the answers. Call us or call the School Boards Association. So here we are. Any of you guys doing? I heard actually when I popped in to tell Patty I would be done, I heard Karen say that you've got an apartment.
Yes, I'm kind of freaking out. It's becoming real, Kirsten. Yeah. Sure. So, just a temporary. I have a 6-month with an opportunity to do a year, because I'd rather buy a little house in Bismarck there than throw my money out the window. So if anybody knows anything, but gosh, real estate is so expensive there.
It is.
Yeah. So, so we moved my first round of stuff there on Saturday, and I'm ready to start on the 15th, and
what a time to switch jobs, but it's pretty exciting. Just a little plug. I'm a Mandan girl. I raised my kids over in Mandan. Real estate's a little bit cheaper over in Mandan, and it feels so. I know I've been in the same house now for 19 years, just about 29 years. Holy cow, where did that decade go? But I remember deciding on Mandan because it felt a little bit smaller town. It felt a little bit, it's one high school, one grocery store, just a little bit smaller town. Right. So
and we actually have looked at a couple places and have some property that we're looking at just kind of in the rural parts of Mandan. There's like a couple 5-acre parcels where then maybe we could put a little cabin or something and make do with that, but that's going to take a little time. So I'm like an apartment. I felt like I was in high school again, or college. It's like, oh my God, I'm moving into an apartment after 40 years of whatever. Yeah. So it's been a little strange. Got some great feedback from all the ladies here. So I'm excited. It's a new journey and a new challenge for Me and us as educators, I guess. So
So what did I miss? Are you guys, any of you guys doing summer school, teaching summer school in person or distance?
I
No?
thought Sarah said she was, or her school is.
I originally was signed up. I've never not taught summer school. I've always taught at summer school every year. And so this is the first year that I actually school year, because usually the school year ends and I'm preparing for summer school because it starts the next week. But they're doing it in July this year. So I was going to teach it, but I just found out that the space camp for Teacher of the Year is still on as of right now. So that's like a week during summer school. So I just talked to the summer school coordinator today and just kind of decided that maybe I should say no just in case that's on. So I'm not teaching summer school for the first time in my career.
Wow. That's a
So
change.
real summer.
Yeah, I'm actually teaching summer school. We start on Thursday, actually, and it's all online in Fargo.
That's right. So are your students, are they excited about another semester or another course that is online? I'm sure they wish it was face to face, but they'll do what they need to do.
Yeah, so I'm teaching the EL, so our lowest level ELs online. So we have about 27 of them. And I think that they're excited just to be able to still have contact with a teacher. Some of them got confused and turned in their laptops, and then we had to deal with that and then get them their laptops back. And so it's just that communication situation, and we sent out 4 emails in 4 different languages, but that doesn't cover all of our languages. So that whole communication piece is tricky. But the kids have been messaging, have been emailing, saying, when is this, when is that? Am I in your class? And so I think they're excited just to have that interaction, because everything's really canceled and they don't really have anything organized that they're used to. So I'm excited for my high school ELs, and we start, Thursday is when we start. So I just got to the lakes to pick up my kids because I had to go into the classroom and move everything I owned for 7 years in my classroom into a different room because my best teacher friend retired this year. And so I have to take over her room. So I couldn't do that with my own kids. And so my parents are watching them at the lakes here. So yeah.
That's great. So I have a question for you all. Are you guys still, as we talked about restarting, there are questions about how to measure engagement, how to do gradings if we do this disruption, best practices out there. You guys still up for some work in July? I know we thought about giving everybody a break, but doing some convening of this STOY group in July to collect some best practices and provide some materials. You guys still up for that work in July? Okay, good. I was hoping so. And so should we plan for face-to-face in Bismarck as of now and see how it goes? I mean, obviously, if you're not feeling comfortable, if you can't join for a variety of reasons, whatever those are, I'm thinking that we'll provide the opportunity to join distantly, but I would like to plan for a face-to-face in person, 4 days or something like that, where we can do that work. It just seems to be, for this type of project, it seems to work best when everybody is in face-to-face. Okay. So I think we're going to move forward with that and get that out. We'll work through the STOY group and that will be our teacher selection. We did get our results back from the survey that we put out regarding just the simple 5 questions. It was interesting. I'm going to pull that up. It was very interesting because the majority of our respondents were parents or family members.
Oh.
Probably doesn't surprise you, but we were really, really thrilled. We had over 1,000 respondents, which is amazing. As you guys know, when you put out a survey, especially at the end of the school year, that people are interested in giving their opinion. It was a short, simple 5-question survey. Oh, it's booting up. And I'll probably just share it. I'll share it out with you. But I think this might be a good place for us to start about, even with our STOY conversation. Okay, here we are. And I'll share my screen with you so you guys can see it. Okay. Okay, can you guys see this? Did a graph just pop up?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So essentially, this was the respondents. What type of stakeholder do you represent? So 60, like I said, it's just over about 1,000 respondents. So 61.7% were parents or family members. The next highest was community member, followed by teacher, followed by other, public official, school staff member, advocacy organization, partner group, student, 2.4%. I was pretty impressed by that. More students and district superintendents, 1.5%, and then of course principals, 0.6. So question number 2. I'm going to make this a little bigger. Question number 2 is, what support would be most helpful to provide effective distance learning for students in the event that we need to address this option again in the future? Please select your top 5 choices. Number 1, ready-made lessons that are personalized to each student's ability and can be delivered through video or virtual learning. Professional development was number 2, or virtual training resources for teachers on effective distance learning strategies. That didn't surprise me. Then number 3, digital platforms that provide regular educational content to students. So those are the top 3 of 60, 53, and 49. And then it goes down to student access to reliable computers, improved physical learning resources in your home, better internet access, models of digital classroom practices, access to printing services, other, and adult access in home. So that was question number 2. Question 3. How do you want to see the state prioritize support to respond to the impact of the closure to COVID due to COVID-19, school closures due to COVID-19? Addressing the needs of special populations, low income, students with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities. Again, professional development for effective distance teaching and learning was number 2. And communication and partnership with families was number 3. But a close 4th was technology needs statewide for hotspots, cellular data contracts. Not far behind either is the mental health services related to students and educators, online resources for personalized learning, and additional personnel or extended contracts for personalized teaching and learning. Question 4. How should the state support potential learning needs for K-12 students as a result of school closures? Online access to digital learning opportunities, tutorial programming through the North Dakota Center for Distance Education for all public and private K-12, and additional extended learning opportunities during the school day. Others of high note are after-school program for 2021, distance learning opportunities for this summer, student scholarships for students to obtain private tutoring, added time for summer school, and finally the other. And the final question, it was just a lot of comments, as you can see. So I can share this out. I think we're going to close this on Friday. So when it gets final, I can share this out with all of you to take a look at more in depth. But I found at first blush, at first look, those are things that I'm not surprised. And I think that there are some things that we can really build on, and we can have some opportunity and some funding to make sure that those are in place. So that will be a starting point. So
that is valuable information. What a great survey.
It really, really was. I will tell you that I got beat up on from a political opponent of mine, saying that I shouldn't be asking. That was the job of the school superintendents to do. They are the ones hired in their school districts to determine what their budgets were. So I found that a little surprising. It's like, that's not okay. We serve everyone. So I'm really pleased that we had such a strong response, and that I think we got some really valuable feedback.
And you get really different results from a particular district than you do as a state as a whole. So it's really good information to have looking at the whole state versus a particular, school district. If that's what that is the work you do. The work you do is for the state.
Yeah, it's for the state. And I call myself my primary customers, they can't even vote, much less hire a lobbyist, because they're not 18. So I kind of view myself, and the team views ourselves as the lobbyists work in the hallways with our legislators, just to make sure that we are their lobbyists. So, so it's pretty important stuff. So yeah, but the comments are really good as well. So Lori Matsky, I have to give her the credit. She, I saw this as an idea, best practice. I think one of my family cabinet members had shared it as a good idea. And I asked Lori if she thought it was a good idea, and Lori said yes, and she just took it and ran with it, and she made it happen. And then Dale Wetzel, who you guys know, worked with Commerce to get it sent out, for Department of Commerce. So that's what we're working on. Any days that we should stay away from as we talk about days in July or weeks in July? Should I have Patty send out a doodle poll?
Sure.
Okay. Just a couple different options.
Yeah.
This is Amy. Can I ask you a few questions real quick?
Absolutely.
Is the Governor's Summit, are they doing anything with the Governor's Summit this year?
They're not, actually.
Okay.
I was wondering about that too, because Maria Nessett, the new policy advisor with the education portfolio, she put out a survey to stakeholders, and she informed DPI that they had made the decision to postpone.
Oh, okay.
To postpone. They wouldn't be holding it in June. There is some conversation about the governor having what he's dubbing the Acceleration Academy. Is kind of a jump start to possibly using some of his CARES dollars to pay teachers that want to get their students back in a little bit earlier, a couple weeks earlier, and do some summer camps or some acceleration. Probably very similar to what Minot has chosen to do. I'm not sure that Minot has chosen to call their summer school an Acceleration Academy, but you guys have chosen not to do summer school in June, but to do summer school in July as kind of a jump start. And that's, I think, the theory behind the governor's thoughts of just get kids back and up and running a couple weeks earlier. So we were going to have Sal Khan. Whenever we have it, Sal Khan from the Khan Academy will be one of the speakers. So it will be great when we are able to have it. But we don't know when that is.
Okay, so. I just had that on my calendar, and I hadn't heard anything about it. And then are all of the districts in North Dakota done with school now, or did anybody extend their year?
All of our school districts in North Dakota finished their 2019-2020 school calendar. They're all complete.
And then my last question is, now it slipped my mind. I should have actually wrote it down. I guess I should have wrote it down. But my other comment, and I don't know if you know this, Superintendent Baszler, but this 2020 graduation class is the first class in North Dakota where we had statewide full day everyday kindergarten. And I don't think that, because it was the 07-08 kindergartners. Yes. Full day kindergarten was passed in the spring of 07 at the legislative session of 07. And so the 07-08 kindergartners, which now graduated just now, this is the first class statewide that was offered full day, everyday, full funded kindergarten. Now there were some districts prior to 07 that did offer full day kindergarten because they could afford it and it wasn't a big cost to their district because they might have had, 10 kindergartners, whereas in Minot we have 700. And so some districts did offer it prior to 07, but this is the first class that it was offered statewide. So I didn't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that. And oh gosh, I wish I would have known that. I would have said something about it in the comments, but I'm certainly going to put that out now on our social media. That's incredible. I remember when that happened, and it was monumental. So I was working in Bismarck, obviously, and on the board, I was the board president in Mandan School Board. And Donna Fishbeck, who's now the deputy at DPI, she was the vice president on the Mandan School Board. And we decided, we were voting that night on, we wanted to fund, once we received funding, we voted, we're having the vote to have full day, everyday kindergarten in Mandan for the following year. We moved our meeting from the normal meeting room into the auditorium at Mandan High School because we thought that there would, because generally it's like, oh, cradle to grave, right? We expected a huge audience and comment period. No one showed up. And I remember all the board members walking out saying, do they realize what we just did? This was monumental. This was monumental. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so this is the class that, it's really historical for our state. And it just happens to be this class that started full day everyday kindergarten, and then they didn't get to finish their senior year. So,
they have been mold breakers from the very beginning, haven't they? Did any of you get a chance to watch the senior celebration on Saturday? My favorite part, obviously I loved all of our famous speakers, but my favorite part was Courtney Betts, the senior speaker. When she just said, what would she have done? It brought tears to my eyes. She would have told her teachers a little bit more how much they meant to her. She'd have hugged her friends a little tighter and hung around that school building a little bit longer that day. And I just thought, wow, and what they've come through and what they've been part of. They will be, I don't think we've seen the last of class of 2020. I think we'll hear a lot of them. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then I did think of my last question. So I don't know if, I'll just throw it in here and you see if you can fill us in. But I know Governor Berg, I'm sorry. I know that he is still doing his COVID, updates. So are you still meeting with like an education group or superintendents? What's going on statewide? What are some of the things that are actually being thrown out on the table just to kind of keep us in the loop a little bit?
Yep, I appreciate that. And so the last executive order we had was May 27th, and that had to do with the ending fund balances, particularly appropriate for small school districts. I will tell you that that didn't go over so well with our legislators. Our legislators felt that it was an overreach on our executive branch of the governor's office to suspend something that dealt with money and budget and appropriations. So the governor's office met with Senator Wardner and Representative Pollard yesterday, and they're asking the governor to reconsider. I met with OMB, governor's office, and two other legislators, Chairman Munson, whom some of you have testified in front of. Chairman Munson is the chairman of the House Appropriations Subcommittee. Very nice man. And he and Representative Nathy, a appropriations representative from Bismarck. There's 15 school districts that are very small that this would help and benefit. But the legislators have kind of informed the governor that this would be the executive order. They are having problems with him issuing executive orders as a whole, as a general rule. And this would be the one they felt they have the best legal standing to have a court case, to challenge in court. So the governor and I think will meet later tonight. He's obviously in Grand Forks for today at the officer's funeral and memorial. And so we may likely roll back that executive order, but that doesn't impact any of your school districts, to be honest with you. It would there's, like I said, about 15 school districts at maximum. So the other big question that has been coming at me, the superintendents have they've quit meeting weekly. The principals did have a call today that they asked me to join. And their question, and this is the most common question, is now that the governor has gone from the color-coded and moved into the green stage, out of yellow into the green, does that impact any of the rules for summer school, like the maximum of 15? So I did have a chance to visit with the governor last night, and this is where he's at. He will not be revisiting anything within our North Dakota K-12 Smart Restart guidelines for the next several weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. He will revisit those guidelines and what the summer school expectations are for groups of students in a few weeks. But summer school started yesterday. Buildings were opened up to limited uses yesterday. The whole intent of that was to see, do we have outbreaks? Is the community spread contained? And if it's contained, then in a few weeks, obviously he looks at data every day. He'll be looking at that data. He'll use that as his consideration. But at the end of June, he will then possibly entertain the idea of revisiting the K-12 Smart Restart guidance. At that same time, we'll have a better handle. But right now, childcare and K-12 are intentionally aligned to 15. Childcare raised theirs to 15. We opened up our schools with groups of 15. More of the conversation is now about how do we begin to plan for August? And I'm proud that we're talking about that, because now is the time to talk about that. And there are 2 tracks that we need to talk about. We need to talk about the health and safety side, like what do we need to do with physical logistics of our students, and what are some possible schedules. But we also need to talk about what is the learning. How will we re-enter? And how will we manage diagnostic assessments? Are we going to require diagnostic assessments? Are we going to, we obviously wouldn't require a diagnostic assessment, but are we going to require that every school district have a diagnostic assessment for all of their students, or at least a plan for? How will we be measuring engagement if we go into disruption again? And so we all, I think, can agree that what we had from March 15th to middle of May was far better than what Tennessee had, or Pennsylvania, or Washington. But we, I think, can all agree that it's not what we would want for our own children or our own students. And so how do we begin to plan and prepare for making that better? Some teachers had what they needed and were comfortable and knocked it out of the park. And others really struggle. And so how are we going to plan now and prepare now for making sure our teachers have what they need, both in professional development and support that they need? There's also this, I guess I would say, that there are also some considerations. I would throw our kindergarten teachers into this mix as well, because we're talking about how do we have band and choir, and as we try to move towards that well-rounded education that we are finally getting back to, how in a distance learning will we ensure that those students are being exposed to band and choir and welding? And how are we going to make sure that we're teaching kindergartners about sharing in this environment of, so those are, and that's where I'm really hoping that I can engage the STOY chapter of you all, because those are the questions that I think we'll have a lot of maybe some government officials trying to answer, and we'll have many, I think, superintendents trying to answer, to provide in some guidance. But we need to have that actual the implementers really talk about those things and start to problem solve, because I think if we can give them some problem solving solutions for them to start with, then it can make it into the guidance. The other thing that's going to be a little bit challenging is every Thursday afternoon, we have what's called a unified command staff meeting. And so that's led by General Dorman and Tammy Miller, the new Chief Operating Officer of the Burgum administration. And so they had given us a directive DPI to work with the state agencies of Department of Human Services, Department of Health, and our emergency services, and DPI, obviously, to come together and do that logistical framework, that logistical reentry for full reentry. But you also have educators, educator associations working on some reentry to give to each other, which is what you want. But how do you blend? And so I think that's where it's going to be a little challenging. And I think that's our office's responsibility to make sure that we are blending and braiding what's being done on the educational front with what's being done on the state agency front, and putting that into one document that we're going to give to the Burgum administration to consider as he makes decisions about what that executive order can and can't be amended to allow in August. So, but that's a lot of relationships, and the last thing we want to do is confuse the field, because if you have associations putting out this guidance and agencies putting out this guidance, you suddenly get a really confused teaching staff and really confused educators in districts out there. So and I have a meeting next week with Mike Bitts, the superintendent of Mandan, and Sean Hawker, the superintendent of Dickinson Schools, are leading the superintendent field of trying to get that together. So if I can get that superintendent field together with the Department of Health and state agency group, so they're not working on the same things, but maybe they're working on different things, and then we can bring it together to present one document. So that's where we're at. Good questions. And I have a family cabinet meeting tomorrow. So the family cabinet has gone to bi-monthly as well. We used to meet every week, and now we're up to every other week because summertime in here. But they too are very, very interested and committed to making sure that family voice remains strong and partners, so that if the disruption ever occurs again, that they don't have to relearn what they've relearned and get caught up to speed. So.
Superintendent Baszler, do you want to tell this group a little bit about the pre-K-12 Family Engagement Alliance? Because I'm really excited about the work of that group, and I'm looking forward to doing some empathy interviews this week.
Why don't you tell them, actually, Sarah?
Well, I think you should.
I really think you should, because remember, as I opened last week's meeting, it's like because it's a PK-12 Family Alliance, when I talk too much, then it becomes what the department knows or what the department says or what I just want to be the facilitator of that, because I want it to be the PK-12 Alliance that I get to learn from. So I want you to share.
You probably know a little bit more clearly exactly what the goals are of that group, though. Like, I can't even think of what the specific goals are.
Sure, I can do that. So when the family cabinet met in May, actually, maybe late April, it all runs together now. We had our meeting on a Saturday, and well, actually, I'll back up a little bit. So we were having our meeting, and it was in the very first so it must have been the first part of April. Yeah, it might have been the first week of April. Our family cabinet members were sharing ideas and sharing about what was happening in their lives and how they were learning. And Josh Johnson, a superintendent from Valley City, had brought together a group of family members within his own school district before they started their distance learning. And he brought them together, and then they launched, and then things didn't go as planned. Everything looks prettier on paper. So he brought family members back together and said, okay, we stubbed our toe. Can you help us? And so he brought together a listening group, and he, out of that listening group, got a whole bunch of better ideas about how to make the distance learning work. And so I asked the cabinet if they wanted to hear from him, and the family cabinet said yes. And so Josh Johnson spent the next Saturday going over what he was doing in Valley City and how it was operating. And it was so helpful for our family cabinet to hear what was happening in one district. And then they went and shared with their school superintendents and their board members about what was happening in other districts. And there was just suddenly a lot of energy around what could be best practices. And then, so that's how that happened. And then the next week, the family cabinet just said, that was so valuable. We have to cross-talk more. We can't be talking about each other. We have to talk with each other, because they were so enlightened and they heard the challenges that superintendents had. Josh was so enlightened by his family group that he convened in Valley City, and even the conversation that he had with other community members. And so everyone was just really eager to learn from each other. So at that point, the cabinet said, we have to seize this opportunity. We have to leverage this pandemic to make sure that we crosstalk with each other instead of talking over each other. And so they said, can we form a cabinet? And they brainstormed who the cabinet member, the alliance should be. And they felt that it was very important to have teachers, to have students, to have superintendents, to have principals, to have counselors, and to have behavioral health specialists along with family members. And so they brainstormed people from across the state within their own communities. She'd be a really great elementary principal to include. He's a great high school principal. This is a great counselor. And so we invited them all to join our alliance, and our cabinet members. Sarah is the teacher representative on that. And we partnered with a group called Center for Innovation and Education, because they had heard about North Dakota having a family cabinet. They began to see around the nation how important family voice was, and that suddenly these families are thrust into this new teaching role in a way that they've never been before. And so they reached out to North Dakota and said, I hear you have this family cabinet. And I said, yes. And they said, hey, how can we help? And I said, hey, I need to stay neutral. I need somebody to facilitate this work, because if I do it, then it becomes really heavy state led. And I don't want it to be that. I want it to be somebody from out of state that is agnostic and doesn't know anybody. And so the CIE, this is the work that they do. They're a philanthropic organization. They're a nonprofit that is funded by philanthropic foundations to do this work. So it's no cost to us. And we brought them in, and they've created agendas. And then the very first order of business is more than just cross-talking, really gaining and documenting perspectives of the diverse people that are involved in a child's education. So thus the empathy interviews, and then I will let Sarah talk to you about the empathy interviews.
I was trying to find the empathy interview to pull it up for an example, but my documents are such a mess right now with all the distance learning, and I can't even remember what kind of document it is. Is it a Google Doc? Is it a Word? What is it? It's just been a really great experience so far. So thank you, Superintendent Baszler. And I really, what did you say the group was again? The Center for Innovation?
Center for Innovation and Education.
I love the way that they are just such listeners, and they're just pulling everybody's ideas, and then it just feels like they're just doing it. Well, it's their job, I guess, but they're doing a really nice job. So the members of the team are asked to find some people in their community and do empathy interviews with them, and just to get a grasp. And I feel like, Superintendent Baszler, would you agree it's really similar to, it's like your survey, only a little bit dig a little bit deeper, and it's like on a personal level, where I'm picking some families that, and we were asked to pick some families that maybe are experiencing some, some families that maybe have some diversity, or just different experiences that they might be having during distance education and school in general. And so I'm looking forward to being a really good listener, and just, I really have appreciated, I feel like it's been professional development for me, being just part of that team with that group that is leading it. So I'll share more with this group as it goes on. I think we're moving just like this group, right? A couple times a month.
Yep. And so the goal as part of that, once we collect the information, the goal is to kind of create a guide or a resource. I hate to call it a toolkit, but a resource trunk for all school districts to utilize to ensure that there is that school to home connection in COVID times or non-COVID times. Because again, as we all know, it's like we cannot do it without our families, and our families know they can't do it without us, but we've got to find a better way to be true partners in the same child that we love. So that's, and some schools are better at it than others. Some individuals are better at it than others. And so to provide a resource to share and scale out to make sure that it's just not pockets of good school home partnerships, but we can have that as who we are in North Dakota. So thanks for it'll be good. I don't know where we're going to be. I'm just so excited about, this is my 31st year in education. I'm like, wow, this is just getting good. It's like, I can't imagine what it's going to be in 3 years from now. There's going to be some growing pains along the way, but I at least we're not sitting around, I think, talking about who we want to be anymore. We've ripped the Band-Aid off. I know even Williston, I know we have a teacher of the year in this chapter from Williston. Williston's actually beginning to talk about utilizing their schedule in a drastically different way. Wow. To cure their overcrowding problem. They can't get a bond issue passed. And so Jeff Thake is going to meet with, Jeff Thake is the superintendent up there. We're setting up a meeting so Jeff and I and his team can meet with Governor Burgum and Lieutenant Governor Sanford. When that can happen, we throw in a few riots in the nation, and it's just like, so isn't that surreal to you guys? I feel like this weekend, I feel like I was watching a film clip from my U.S. history class of the 1960s civil rights riots.
Mm-hmm.
So sad.
I was saying that to somebody, I can't remember who I was talking to, conversation going on Facebook, and then I did the Blackout Tuesday break and told my sister, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay off Facebook for 24 hours, but I'm going to try, and just having conversations with people. And I was a little kid in the 67 riots in Detroit. And there was a lady who was talking on there about how she has a biracial son, and I have a biracial nephew. And I said, this was probably 15 years ago, and it was, maybe 10 years ago in one of my doctoral classes that I was doing. I graduated from Wayne State University, which is in Detroit. And we had a class that was the history of Detroit. And though I grew up there, I never knew as many of the stories. It was quite fascinating what we learned. But in that classroom, we were probably 60% Black and 40% white. And it was just a day where the professor said, why don't you all just talk to each other? If you remember any of that or what was happening. And it was really awkward at first. And that's what this lady was saying, that she said it was really hard. Oh, I know what it was. She was talking to her maintenance man, who is African American, and she is white, and she has lived in the South for her entire life. And she said, I sat down and asked him today, what does it feel like to be Black in the South? And so I responded to her and saying that when we talk to these people, because all I remember is my parents were going to hide us in the attic. We had a plan, and we would get hid in the attic because they were talking about busing. And the white kids were going to get bused to Detroit, and the Black kids were going to get bused to the suburbs. Well, we didn't want to go to Black Detroit. That's where it was all the bad people lived. Mm-hmm. My parents didn't believe that, but that's what society had told us. So when I brought that up. I said that, and I had like 4 Black people in my group said, that's so weird, because our parents said the same thing. Yeah. The white people were the bad people, and my parents had a plan to hide us and when you think about it, nobody's parent wants to send their kid on a bus, no matter what color they are, to a place they don't know.
Yeah.
It was so eye-opening. I'll never forget that day. We sat in class. We were there for like 3 or 4 hours, and I think it was a 90-minute class. Nobody wanted to leave. It was groundbreaking for me to think about. It's that perspective thing, right? Of there aren't really bad people, like that one thing that says there are good police officers that are black and white, and there are good parents who are black and white. There's bad seeds everywhere. And somehow we have to find a way. We were talking about that before you came in, Superintendent Baszler, about some people feel, and my nephew, who is 24 and who is biracial, is on the fence about it. He said, I have seen a lot of this. He wants to become a police officer. And he is struggling with, he said, I feel like we've tried the peaceful thing and nobody's listening. And I feel like it may take a revolution of violence. I don't agree with it, but notice how people are listening. And we're having some pretty serious discussions about it, but I also think some of the nice things were the ones where you see the police officers marching with people and kneeling and praying with people. That's me. I'm not going to give up on that peaceful revolution, but I understand where some of these younger people are saying that it's not working. He's grown up his entire life like this, my nephew.
So I remember, do you guys remember the St. Paul riots about, I guess it was 2016, August of 2016. And then Dallas was shortly after that, so it was that week. So I happened to be invited to, ironically enough, a week-long seminar at the Aspen Institute that was dedicated to equity, to really honestly, authentically, rawly talk about equity. And it was one of those experiences that was set up intentionally to wear you down. Like, we started at 7 a.m. with the morning hike. That was our first meeting. And we went until 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. And so it's kind of one of those boot camp type of experiences. So you are just tired and raw. So that's the way that it was set up intentionally anyway, for us to become raw, because there was me, white woman from Midwest America, and all sorts of, just Black people and Asian people. And it was very diverse, right? So add into that boot camp of becoming vulnerable and raw to the fact that on Tuesday morning when we woke up was the killing in St. Paul, and then Thursday, the ambush in Dallas. And so we were really raw, and we just threw the entire agenda away, and we just spent 5 days for 10-hour days doing that. But what I remember most about that was there was a woman there who had a teenage son, and he was home in Houston is where she was from. She was scared to death. And she talked about the arguments. He was 15 years old, and she talked about the arguments that they would have about him wearing his hoodie up, and just insisting that he needed to cut his hair, and he couldn't put his hands in his pockets as he's walking down in his jeans pockets, and he couldn't put his hoodie up. And I'm the mother of 3 sons, and I remember those arguments when they were teenagers. I mean, it was brutal, right? It's like getting their hair cut, and they had to be respectful, and they couldn't put their hoods up, and you couldn't wear your pants down around your butt, right? And those were tough conversations as a mom. And I hated them. I couldn't, but they were not life and death for me. I mean, this mother said this was life and death. It was about her son coming home at the end of the day, whether he wore his hoodie up or put his hands in his pocket. And that shook me to my core. Yeah. And it wasn't long after that. I have a friend who's in the Air Force, and he was doing some education with some education work, and we were driving. He picked me up from his way to Minot. We were on our way to Fargo driving, and he got pulled over for speeding, but right outside of Valley City. And he immediately put both of his hands on his steering wheel and didn't move until the officer had come and asked him to roll down the window. And he put his hand up like this, And I was like, wow. And he said it was something that his father taught him. He grew up in the South, taught him when he got his driver's license. And I speed. I shouldn't tell you that, but I do. I'm a hot mess. I'm like, I am just like when it's like, okay, I'm like, where's my, I'm furtive movements all over the place. Like, where's my driver's license and where's my insurance? And I'm just, but it was a complete, because I'm a white woman. That doesn't pose a threat. And I just thought, so all of those two things happened in the course of about 6 weeks for me. And I get it. I absolutely get that they live under a completely different set of circumstances. And I don't know what the answer is, but I too am with you, Karen. It's like, I cried when I saw those police officers take that knee and just say, let's be this. I don't know what the answer is, but our children are watching us.
They always are.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are over time. Any more questions?
I don't think so.
All right. We have another call set up. Be watching for something from Patty to set up a doodle, and we'll get everybody together and we'll make the coordinating. So, hey, Kayla, I just see you. All right. Thanks for your time, you guys.
Sounds great. Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
See you all. Take care.
See you soon.
Bye.